Good morning. Oh goodness, I'll step a little bit back from that microphone. Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Everybody find the coffee at the back of the room? Nobody found the coffee at the back of the room? Oh good, we have somebody over there. She's probably drinking a lot of coffee because I notice a lot of cups are gone. We've got some people who are still moving in. We'll wait just a minute here to actually get started on the formal program. And while we wait, I just want you to know I'm Cheryl Seifert. I'm the Executive Director of the Parkinson Association. And I want to thank all of you for being here today, and especially for quickly finding your seats. So, a welcome and thank you for joining us at the 3rd Annual E3 Educate, Empower, and Energize Conference. You know, thank you for this incredible response. We have about 450 people registered for the program today. And what a powerful statement your presence makes. You know, the voice of the Parkinson's community because of you is loud and clear. Parkinson's disease is a community issue. It demands community attention. We need increased research. And we need improved services for those living with Parkinson's, their families, and their care partners. So I want you all to give yourself a congratulations for being here and showing up and being such great advocates. You know, a conference of this magnitude requires the support of the entire Parkinson's community. You, the attendees, being the advocates for Parkinson's awareness and putting Parkinson's in the forefront. Today, our sponsors and exhibitors provide the fuel to keep that train moving forward. So I'd like to give some special thanks to AbbVie for their very generous grant support so that we could provide this conference today. Our conference sponsor is Teva Neuroscience. Today's lunch sponsor is Medtronic. And our breakout sponsor is US World Meds. Please join me in thanking them. Additionally, our exhibitors provide support for and information about services available to the Parkinson's community. And our exhibitors are such an integral part of this conference. You know, we have more exhibitors at this conference than we've ever had at any conference. So I'd like to thank all of our exhibitors. You'll find their names or their companies are listed in your program today, but I just want to give them a special shout out. AbbVie, AbbVie Parkinson Disease Advocates, Abbey Senior Care, Accessible Systems, Colorado Neurological Institute, the Davis Finney Foundation, Good Leaf Home Care, Home Watch Caregivers, Innovage, Life Care Centers of America, Littleton Adventist Hospital, LSVT Global, Lundbeck, Medtronic, More Than Motion, Pedaling for Parkinson's, Rosemark, Senior Path, the Denver Hospice, Teva Neuroscience, Touching Hearts, UCB, University of Colorado Hospital, and US World Meds, and Qualicare. Thank you very much to all our exhibitors. I hope you've made it out to see them. How many have tried that pedaling bike? I saw a bike out there. Saw somebody on it. Make sure that during the breaks and whatnot, you try that out and visit all of our exhibitors. They are filled with some fabulous information about the resources available. I also want to recognize the E3 Conference Committee members. And if you're in the room, if you'd please stand up. Kitsy Atkinson, John Dean, Linda Hall, Meredith Roberts, and Stacy Roberts. Thank you for your fabulous work in helping to put this conference together. We can't put a conference together like this without the assistance of our committee. So once again, I thank you very much. And I also want to thank all of the volunteers who have helped with this conference. Some have stuffed bags, some are providing you directions at the conference here, and others have helped pass out bags and whatnot. Every single one of these volunteers is vital to our small staff. We're only 4.25 people. Well, it's not a 2-5 person, but we're only a small staff. Without the help of the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to offer a program like this today. So thank you very much to all those volunteers. You're like awesome. You're our heartstrings. Lastly, there's a very special thank you I'd like to personally make, and that is to Madison Holland, our Program and Communications Director. She's standing in the back of the room very quietly. Madison is responsible for organizing and bringing our community together for this wonderful conference, and she has done an awesome job, and I thank you, Madison. You will also see a number of our other staff, Carrie Buchanan, Erica Wright, and Carrie Friedman, wearing blue shirts with the Parkinson logo. I'm the only one who doesn't get in uniform. But please thank them when you see those blue shirts. And I want to thank all the staff. It does take all of us to help put on this conference. So hopefully you've all had a chance to dive into your green bags that you received. Has everybody taken a gander in there? Or just stuff them? Okay. So you will find today's program in there. That is kind of your guideline of what is happening when. In addition, you will find an evaluation in that bag. Please, please, please complete your evaluations and return them to us. You know, grant funders more and more often are asking me, how did you evaluate the conferences and what were the outcomes? Because if your outcomes were what you expected, we will help fund this conference again. So make sure you fill that out, not just to help us get grant funding, but more importantly, there are 450 people here today. 2 years ago, this same conference held at Mile High Church had 200 people. I credit your comments on your evaluations for increasing the number to 450 because you told us what you wanted. You helped us raise the bar just a little bit higher for the Parkinson's community and the education provided. So fill out the forms, turn them in at the end of the day because we read every single one of them and we actually enter every single one of them into a spreadsheet along with every single comment that's made. And that's how we know what we are going to be doing next year. So thank you very much. There are a couple things also in your conference bag. There's a green sheet, which is our party in the house, or party with a house. And what house? Well, I'll tell you what house. It's a gingerbread house. It's a pre-made gingerbread house, and this is a fundraising type event, but it's a family event, $25 to buy one house. This is our favorite event. It's also our messiest event, and it is a joyful mess. As your family gets together, little children running around and helping decorate houses and decorating themselves and decorating the floor, it is an absolute marvelous time, and it's being held on Saturdays in November and December. Now, there are a couple things that aren't in your conference bag I want to remind you of. The first is Party in the Gallery, which is an event happening next week, October 15th, in the evening in downtown Denver. If you have not signed up for this particular event, it is one of our signature fundraisers. If you have not signed up and are interested in going, stop by the registration table and talk with Carrie Buchanan or Erica Wright. If you are registered but you have not heard from us, if you sent in your registration and for some reason have not heard from us, also stop by the registration and check with Carrie or Erica to make sure we have you on the list, because we do respond to all of the registrations that are sent in. There are some professionals here who need a certificate of attendance for their professional organizations. If you need a certificate of attendance, you can pick that up at the registration desk at the end of the conference. Okay, so I have some good news for you. How many of you are worried about that little parking ticket you got? And you're thinking, oh man, they didn't tell me I had to pay for that. You don't, okay? At the end of the conference, the gates will be opened and you will be able to exit for free. So there is no charge for parking. We have picked that cost up for you. And as you're clapping, realize when I say we have picked that cost up, it is our sponsors and exhibitors who help fund this conference who really have picked that cost up and allowed us to do this. So we have one last detail. Okay? I do have a detail. I want you to reach in your pockets and I want you to pull this thing out. Okay? Okay? And I want you to make sure it's either on silent or wiggle. It's on either silence or wiggle. You know, all of today's sessions are being videotaped, and I really don't think you want your signature ring to be historically recorded within this program and distributed who knows where, actually to our support groups and other people who weren't able to attend the conference. So every phone should be on wiggle. Every phone should be on wiggle. Without further ado, it is time we get this program rolling. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing teacher, author, and mountain climber Lori Schneider. Lori has spent her life traveling the corners of the earth in search of unique cultures, people, and challenging experiences. Her dream started out as an ambition to set foot on each of the 7 continents. But Lori wasn't always a mountain climber. For 20 years, she taught elementary and special education in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Lori is the first person in the world with multiple sclerosis to summit the world's highest peak, Mount Everest. The 59-year-old mountain climber and international speaker is also the first person with MS to complete the 7 summits, which is defined as reaching the top of the highest peak on each continent. Now, you know, Lori may make this sound easy, but I want to share with you just a few facts. 71% of those individuals who attempt Mount Everest fail. 71%. Of those over 50, there is an 87% failure rate. The overall fatality rate on Mount Everest is 5.4%. There are nearly 240 climbers who have died on Everest, with over 130 corpses remaining on that mountain. There are about 50 women in the world who have climbed all 7 summits, and only about 10 of those are Lori's age range. You know, Lori reminds us that there is a dreamer inside us all, and her message is one of hope, inspiration, and empowerment. Please welcome Lori. She's just back from her latest expedition, and here she comes now.
Thank you. For those of you with balance issues like me, just taking off those boots while standing on stage is a little difficult, but I'm so pleased to be here today. It's a real honor to share my personal story of empowerment with a room full of people who are absolutely empowering themselves in their own lives by getting out and doing things. And you have such a unique opportunity to teach the world that our labels don't define us and that we're not limited because we have letters attached behind our name and description. So I commend all of you for being here and for proving the world wrong. And a big thanks to Cheryl and Parkinson of the Rockies in Madison for inviting me here today. And Meredith was a big help in bringing me as well. And also to my Kilimanjaro climbing friends, John and Martha Carlin, and Sierra Ferris and Dr. Monique Giroux, who were also part of our Kilimanjaro team. But so it's great to be here. I have two stories that I want to share with you today, and one's about climbing the mountains of the world, but the other's about climbing the mountains and obstacles in our life. And I think both take a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of strong will. And you know, I'm just a girl who was born and raised in Wisconsin. I never even saw a mountain until I was older, let alone, you know, dreamt of climbing one or 7 of them. And growing up, I was never athletic. After high school, I went away to an all-women's college in Iowa. I got married 1 month after graduation, and I ended up moving to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and started a 20-year teaching career as an elementary and special ed teacher. And my life seemed just very normal and ordinary and predictable. But 20 years later, a series of events happened in my life that I never could have predicted, and it scared the heck out of me. I'll never forget the day. It was January 4th, 1999, and I woke up in the morning and half of my body had gone numb, literally overnight. And the doctors feared the worst, and they tested me for a stroke, and then Lyme's disease, lupus, MS, and even brain cancer. I remember being wheeled down a hallway, ready to go have a brain biopsy procedure done, where they would screw me into a halo device, cut open my scalp and my skull, and they would remove some pieces of brain tissue to study because they saw lesions on the MRI that they'd done. And they wanted to do it while I was awake, they said, so that they wouldn't remove a part of the brain that I really needed. And as I was being wheeled down, I got paged on the telephone system. It was my new doctor. He said, "We're a university hospital. We change teams on the first day of each month, and it's March 1st. And I don't think you have brain cancer." And I said, "Well, what should I do?" And he said, "Go to the desk, cut off the wrist bracelet, and go home." I did, and they chased me down the hallway. But after about 3 months of multiple brain MRIs and tests, they concluded that they in fact had misread one of my first tests, and I did indeed have MS. When I heard those 2 little letters, I panicked and I ran away from my whole life. I quit my 20-year teaching career. I left a 22-year marriage. I left my friends, sold the house, left my community, and I moved back to Wisconsin to the safety net of my family. And I ran away in fear, but it wasn't until I left that I found myself again. And that really happened through mountain climbing for me, and having a goal to reach for that was bigger than what I perceived my disability to be was really what started me moving forward. So it all really started with a dream of my father's, and his dream was to climb a mountain someday. Well, that dream developed into my goal of climbing the highest peak on each of the 7 summits. But it really also started back when I was in high school, and I was in the kitchen with my dad, and he said, someday I want to go to Africa and climb Kilimanjaro. And my dad had always been pretty athletic, and he was a runner, and I said, someday I'll go with you. So 20 years later, we met in Africa. We climbed Kilimanjaro. Neither one of us had ever climbed anything before. Summited on my dad's 61st birthday. So that was the start of it. But let me just fast forward 18 years to 2011. I went back to Kilimanjaro a second time, but this time the reason I went back was very different than the first time. This time I wanted to help other people who were also diagnosed with a neurological disease, give them some hope that their life could be fun again and that they could achieve some things that they didn't think they could. So I got my father together, and we decided to take a group to Kilimanjaro, and we had 28 people. We had 10 people with MS, 4 people with Parkinson's disease, and 14 companion climbers that went along with us. And the age range was 24 to 79, because my dad had just turned 79 and wanted to give it another shot. So when we got there, we had this team of Parkinson's people, MS people, but we were really functioning as a unit together. We were all people that just needed to prove to ourselves and the world that we were stronger than our labels. So on the left, there's Dr. Monique Giroux, who, with her expertise and her kindness, she was an amazing team doctor. She's such a great neurologist and specializes in working with people with Parkinson's. Next to her is Glenn. He was 57. He's a computer scientist. He has PD. Behind him in the blue is Nathan, wonderful spirit. He's a mill worker. He was 54 at the time, also has Parkinson's. Next to that, John Carlin, who's from right here in Denver. John was 53 at the time. He also lives with Parkinson's disease. He controls his tremors quite well through pedaling for Parkinson's. And next to him, Nan, who was 65, also has Parkinson's. She controls her PD through pedaling for Parkinson's also. So we got together with a physician's assistant as well, Sierra Ferris, who works here in the Denver area. And it was Sierra that called me on the phone one day, and she said, when I was planning the trip, do you think people with Parkinson's could climb Mount Kilimanjaro like people with MS? And I said, who am I to tell anybody no that wants to try to live their dream? And I said, let's go for it, let's try it. And we all just needed to prove to ourselves that we were stronger than our labels said we were. So we got together, and really Sierra and Monique were such a gift to our team because they had such expertise, and it was so invaluable having them along with us. So on the left there is Nathan, one of the ones with PD. Nathan's tremors originally were so bad that he told me he used to tape his eyelids open so that he could see during the day because his tremors caused him to flutter so terribly he couldn't see. He had 2 deep brain stimulators implanted and the monitor in his chest, and he did great on the climb. Next to him was his partner, who has a father that has Parkinson's. So Daniel and his father also have a company called Wilkins Parkinson's Foundation, and they do a lot of work with raising awareness. And what we did on this climb was we paired each person with a disease with a healthy person. And I laugh when I say healthy because really, who's healthy all the time anyway? We all have issues that cause disabilities in our lives from time to time, but it worked really nicely to give everybody a partner to come along. In the back is John Carlin from Denver. Like I said, he controls his Parkinson's through pedaling, and a lot of times he rides a tandem with different friends, but he also rides a stationary bike and often pedals 80 to 90 RPMs for about 45 minutes. I went to a spinning class last night, and does that several times a week and controls his tremors that way. And John's partner on this climb with his wonderful wife, Martha. And Martha had an interesting balance on our trip because her own mother died of MS, and she's John's partner with PD. And Martha is also doing a lot of research on the gut relationship to, you know, what's happening with the bacteria in your stomach and how that relates to Parkinson's and other illnesses. So she's been wonderful, you know, really aiding in research on that. So in all, 7 of the 10 with MS made it to the top. All 4 with Parkinson's made it to the top. And we had about 11 of the partners made it. So all the healthy people didn't make it, but most of them did as well. And when we got back down, we felt very passionate about sharing our personal stories of empowerment with each other and doing something to help raise funds for Parkinson's and MS awareness. So we created this book with our stories, and to date we've donated over $16,000 to MS and Parkinson's causes. So it's been really a great thing, and that was really so much of Martha's hard work that that book got made. So now let me just go back to how my story of empowerment began and how did I get to where I took a group of people back on a climb. 6 years after my first climb of Africa with my dad and I decided to do another climb, the highest peak in South America, Mount Aconcagua. And it was 4 days after we sent in our payment for that climb, a whole year in advance, was the day that I woke up numb, January 4th, 1999. And it took about 3 months for the doctors to figure out what was happening. I remember being in the hospital while they were running tests, and it was 5 a.m., and I was in my bed and I was doing sit-ups. I was doing 500 sit-ups. And the doctor walked in and he said, "Lori, what are you doing?" And I said, "Sit-ups." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm training to climb a 23,000-foot peak in a few months and I need to keep in shape." Of course, they think I'm dying and I'm doing sit-ups in the hospital bed, so, you know, he thought I was going crazy. But I continued to train. I didn't tell anybody for fear they would tell me that I couldn't go. But 10 months later, my dad and I went to South America. I made the summit, he did not. I got there and I remember thinking, girl, if you are strong enough to climb a mountain, you're strong enough to tell people you have MS and stop being embarrassed and stop being ashamed and just get on and live your life. That day did change my life. So several years later, I saved money to go and climb the highest peak in Europe, Mount Elbrus, which is on the border of Europe and Russia. Had the car packed and ready to go, and 2 days before I was to leave, I got a phone call from my dad that my mom had died suddenly. She had heart disease and we didn't know it. Fell asleep on the couch and never woke up. After about a month, my dad encouraged me to go on the climb, and I summited, and I remember it was 30 below zero, and I was crying, yelling, "Goodbye, Mom," and got frostbite on my cheeks from the tears, but she climbs with me in spirit now all the time. So from there, in 2006, I wanted to see what I could really do. My MS symptoms were not bothering me. I'd been on medication, I was doing fine. So I decided to climb Denali, which is North America's highest peak. It's always been called Denali, by the way, by the climbers. Most people here used to call it Mount McKinley, but it's now officially Denali. But for me, that was the hardest of the 7 summits because I had to carry 60 pounds of gear in my backpack, and that was my Denali backpack that I had on today. And I had to drag another 60 pounds of gear in a sled behind me. I was the only woman on a team with 10 men and 3 male guides, and I was required to carry the same weight as the guys. And I trained for it by carrying a 50-pound bag of dog food in my backpack, and I would walk up and down the hills at my little local ski area. and my dog Charlie followed me very eagerly every day and loved it. So it was a wonderful experience for me, but it was a very, very difficult climb all the way around. So from there, in 2008, I decided to climb the last 3 of the 7 summits and finish them all up in a year because I wasn't getting any younger, and they were getting difficult. Kosciuszko, I was told it was a walk in the park, really easy. I got there, it was the worst blizzard Australia had had in 10 years. We got turned around after walking for a few hours. We couldn't get a signal on our GPS. Had to go back 2 days later to climb it. But I think it's so strange how sometimes the easiest tasks in life can cause us the greatest difficulties. It's not the hard ones, it's the easy things sometimes that are difficult for us to do. So from there, I went to Antarctica to climb the Vinson Massif. Antarctica is the coldest and windiest and driest continent on Earth. It's 5 million square miles, and almost all of that is ice. And that was really my training ground for Everest. And we made our first summit attempt. It was 45 degrees below zero, 45-mile-an-hour winds. We were within 200 feet of the top, and the call was made we had to stop and turn around because it was so terribly dangerous with the wind chill. So we came back down. A couple days later, we went back up. In this picture, it was only 25 below zero and no wind, so it felt really balmy and nice. So that was wonderful, but that was one of those climbs where I started to doubt my capabilities, and I learned that I'm the only one that has to believe in me to succeed, and I really had to keep convincing myself it's okay for us just to try things. So the last of the 7 summits was my climb of Everest. And Everest is 29,035 feet, and I climbed it in 2009. And I want to read some of my journal entries to you today. Mount Everest journal entry, March 29th, 2009. Why Everest? For 20 years, I taught elementary and special education in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. My goal as a teacher was to help children believe in themselves and not be afraid to try. Now it's my turn to learn that lesson. In attempting a goal as lofty as Everest, I give myself permission to try. I have to believe in myself in order to live my dreams. Sure, I might not always succeed at what I attempt, but there's no failure in that. The success is in the journey. It's always in the journey. So it took us about 10 days to walk to Everest Base Camp. And at that point, we were lucky we had about 50 yaks that carried our gear. But from here on up, we had to carry it ourselves. And for me, with my MS, it's a neurological disease that causes the scarring on the brain and the spinal column. And for me, my MS symptoms have been muscle spasms and some tingling and twitching and mobility issues and a lot of balance issues. Sometimes I lose my vision, sometimes it's cognitive things. So a lot of things that other neurological diseases like Parkinson's deal with. So on this mountain, I was really testing not only my physical strength, but my mental strength to keep going and keep moving forward. So after those 10 days of walking, we were at base camp, and now we were switching from just being hikers to mountain climbers. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, what's a small town girl from Wisconsin doing in the world of mountaineering? I had no fancy sponsors. I had no formal mountaineering training. I read about it in books. And I had no way to repay the huge, huge loan I took out to do that climb. And I thought, am I crazy? Probably, but I think that I was just a person trying to get over the fear of my neurological disease and also just wanting to get out and prove to myself that I still had some control over things happening in my life. Avalanches happened all the time on Everest. And my motto when I was on Everest was not to let fear in, because frankly, everything is scary on Everest. I walked past the body of a very famous climber who was frozen in the ice, Scott Fisher. That alone would have been enough to send me home had I let the fear in. But I needed to realize in climbing and in life that thoughts of fear put my mind in a bad place, and then I am unsafe and unhealthy. So I really had to move beyond the fear so that I could remain safe while I was up there on the mountain. On Everest, we had to cross a lot of ladders over very deep crevasses in an area called the Khumbu Icefall. And for me, that was one of the scariest things. But I think in life, we have to cross mental ladders too. For me, it was the mental issue of, can I get over that hole without falling, just as much as it was the physical issue. And I think we have to cross a lot of mental ladders in our lives. And my strategy, because sometimes those ladders were tied 4 ladders together with a little rope piece, and we're climbing wearing these spiky crampons. And as I would cross the ladder rungs, I would spell words that empowered me. So I just, step on each rung, C-O-U-R-A-G-E, courage and leap of faith and believe, and all of those things. But after a while, I stopped spelling, so I knew that I was getting a little more confident and comfortable with my climbing. May 20th, journal entry. On Everest, pushing beyond what you believe is possible happened every day. Overcoming fear. 9 grueling hours up the Lhotse face, and we're at 23,500 feet, Camp 3. The incredibly steep 40 to 60% incline and thin air causes us to take 1 step, then 7 breaths. 1 step, then 7 breaths. It's the kind of thing nightmares are made of. There are many things in life that once scared me. Being alone, having MS, being broke, or attempting things I was uncertain of. Now, at 52, I'm all those things at once. I'm here on this mountaintop in Nepal with no family to comfort me, $80,000 in the hole, hanging off the side of a wall made of ice, asking myself, am I afraid? Oddly, the answer's no. I trust that this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm feeling at peace. I have learned to overcome fear and learn about trusting my instincts. So now we'd been walking for 7 weeks, going up and down, acclimatizing on the mountain. Now it was really time to see what we were made of and what we could do. May 21st. In climbing Everest, I'm learning to conquer my fear of failure. I've overcome my ideas of what limits me in my life, and I've learned that if I believe, I can achieve. I took a leap of faith in even attempting this mountain, and that was the first of many little steps that will carry me all the way to the summit, and those in my life as well. It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves, said Sir Edmund Hillary. So now, for the next 5 days and 5 nights, we had to wear oxygen 24 hours a day because we were now in an area called the death zone, above 25,000 feet. And, for us, with our team, it was about facing your fears and your challenges. And I felt like for so many years, I'd been facing those obstacles in my life, living with a neurological disease. But frankly, we all have obstacles in our life. Mine is called MS. Yours could be called PD. You might have cancer, high blood pressure. You might have a financial mountain or mountains in your relationship. There are so many mountains that we all have to climb, and sometimes we just have to move beyond the fear and see what we're made of. This is our actual climb as we went up Mount Everest. The summit is up here, 8,000-foot drop on either side where the Hillary step is. So 5 oxygen tanks later, I made it to the summit after 10 hours and 39 minutes up, 6.5 hours back down, and I became the first one with MS to stand on top of Everest. And for me, it was such an honor to carry the hopes and dreams of so many of us with health challenges all the way to the summit. And, you know, people ask me, what was it like to be on top of the world? For those 10 surreal minutes that I was up there, I couldn't see a thing. It was cloudy, it was a storm, I couldn't see a thing after dreaming about it for 16 years. But all I could do was to look inside. And what I saw was this person who is no longer afraid to live life passionately. I saw this person who tried something that once would have scared me to death. And I was finally a person who had hope for the future. It was such a moving experience to be there and feel that I could proceed through life and not be afraid anymore. Final Everest journal entry, May 25th. Reinventing my life. Daughter, wife, teacher, ex-wife, ex-teacher, mountain climber. As I reflect over the past 2 months, many times I feel small and insignificant in my world. Who would have thought, as a little girl growing up playing with dolls, that my life would have progressed to where I am now? As I have moved through the ages and stages in my life, I felt the pain and pleasure of each of my 52 years. I'm soft, tender, feminine, yet wonderfully tough. I've reinvented my life over these past 10 years. I've gone from teaching young children to be brave and trusting themselves to teaching myself these very lessons. Through these experiences in my life, I've begun to teach others as well. My lessons: live your dreams, one step at a time. Trust, take a leap of faith, Be brave. Dream big, really big, and believe in the unbelievable. And to all the people in the medical world and the caregivers out here, I hope you realize the important role that you play, because you have the potential to help somebody as their life Sherpa, really, over the mental obstacles that they feel when they've been diagnosed with a neurological disorder. And you can really help them over those mental ladders and help them live life again, because they need to perceive themselves as healthy. And those of you that have PD, you and I are so much alike. You know, our labels may be different, but what's the same are our fears that our life is never going to be the same. And what I say to you is, prove the world that you are more than the label that's attached to you. Prove to the world that you still have a heart and soul, and you want to do things and you want to try. Who cares how great you look doing them? Frankly, I trip a lot and I fall down. I don't care. I have fun. Get out there and just live your life again, because that's what makes you whole, and that's what makes you a valuable person in your life, in the life of your families, in the life of your society. Believe in yourself and give yourself permission to just get out and try. And always climb beyond the limits that you've set for yourself and change perceptions for everybody. So I thank you so much for letting me share my story, and thank you for being here in the Strong Ones, changing people's lives and people's perceptions. Thank you.
Lori, thank you so much for an incredibly inspiring story. You know, the courage and tenacity that you have demonstrated encourages all of us, and to challenge ourselves to live beyond our Parkinson's disease and our other limitations that we might have, to define who we are and not let a condition be the definition of our lives. Lori, I can't thank you enough for sharing that message with us. Please join me once again in thanking Lori Schneider.
Thank you.
I'm quite sure that Lori will be available for questions following during our break period. What I'd like to do is, before we move into the break, I'd like to give some of our main sponsors of today's programs a few minutes to share with you why their incredible support of this conference is so important to them. We sometimes forget how important sharing information and messages and how an exhibitor helps those living with Parkinson's disease and is part of helping us thrive with Parkinson's disease, how important that is to them. And to also share their role in the Parkinson's community. When we use that term community, the Parkinson's community is huge. Not only those living with Parkinson's, their families, their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues, but also all the professionals out there who have dedicated their lives to providing services to those individuals who are living with Parkinson's. So with that in mind today, Medtronic, Teva, Touching Hearts, Lundbeck, and AbbVie will be joining us for just a few minutes to share their passion about what they do with you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I just wanted to, again, thank Lori for that amazing experience, and I definitely think that it inspires all of us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cindy Kirkendall. I've had the privilege of working with so many of you over the past 13 years as you've gone through your journey, looking at treatment options, specifically deep brain stimulation to improve your symptoms. And for any of you For any of you who are still researching and looking at DBS as a therapy option, please join us at the booth outside today. We have information and resources as you go through that process and look at other therapy options to best treat your symptoms and live the best that you can. So please come by later today, and I wanted to thank PAR for this amazing day. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Brenda. I'm with Teva Neuroscience, and we promote Azilect for Parkinson's disease. And on behalf of Teva, I just wanted to thank Parkinson's Association of the Rockies, all the therapists, the patient advocates, and the physician speakers that have come together to put on a tremendous educational and empowering event for you all today. One of Teva's main goals is not only promoting medications, but also education. So we do a lot of patient education in addition to peer-to-peer education. So thank you for being here today, and please come by and say hello at the booth.
Good morning. My name is Tim. I'm with AbbVie. I am grateful to the Parkinson's Associations of the Rockies to be here this morning. We have a new therapy approved called Duopa in the US. We have a bright orange tablecloth outside, so please come by and talk with us. I'm grateful for organizations like this. My mom had Parkinson's, and I know that my dad relied heavily on the community of other Parkinsonian patients. So have a great day, and I look forward to talking with you.
Good morning. My name is Frank Perez. I'm with Lundbeck Pharmaceuticals, and we are new to Parkinson's disease, but we are not new to rare diseases. And for many of you who don't know who Lundbeck is, we are a Danish company based out of Copenhagen, and we focus in on rare diseases like Huntington's and refractory epilepsy. And now in Parkinson's with a particular disease that we call neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, which is essentially a non-motor symptom of Parkinson's. And we are so thankful to the association and to everybody involved for giving us the opportunity to just share our passion at Lundbeck for dealing with such rare diseases. The company is actually owned 70% by a foundation, which makes us quite different than a lot of other different companies. Close to about 25% of what we make in revenues goes back into research and development of new therapies for very rare diseases. So if you don't know what neurogenic orthostatic hypotension is and you'd like to know how it relates to non-motor symptoms, come visit the Lundbeck booth. So thank you very much for having us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ryan Finsler with Touching Hearts at Home. Thank you so much for coming today, and thanks Cheryl and the team. What an amazing event. I'd like to tell you just briefly about our small business in the area. We help out anything from 1 hour to 24-hour care. We have amazing caregivers in this area. A lot of the things that we focus on are companionship, meal preparation, light housekeeping errands. Some of our clients need help going to Parkinson's events, and so we provide that transportation and much more. One other thing that we're experiencing right now is a high demand for respite care. So you might know of someone who is a full-time caregiver, and quite often we're able to arrange a schedule where we go in as requested weekly and try to have a caregiver that's matched up. And one of the other important things that I'm hearing is consistency, to have the same person each week. So we're working hard to have that. So thank you so much. Appreciate everything.
Please once again give a big hand to our major sponsors. They make it possible for us to give a conference of this magnitude, and it's just like, not only that, I really appreciate the depth of information that we have available and that they have made available to us along with all the other exhibitors. Okay, now we're going to move into the next parts of the conference, and that will be our breakout session. But before our breakout sessions, of course, we get a break. Then we have breakout sessions, okay? So with the break, I want to remind everybody that there is coffee in the back of the room here. This is where you will find coffee. You're not going to find it in another place. So if you need a cup, grab a cup on your way out and take it with you. The breakout sessions actually are going to be, when you go out this room and you go towards the registration desk, look to your left and you'll see something that says ballrooms, ballrooms. There will be people directing you. All of the breakouts are in Evergreen A, B, and C down that way. The other thing that's down that way is our fabulous empowerment bar. So make sure you take time during this break, which is going to end at 10:30, but make sure you take time to check out the empowerment bar. It will also be there when you leave that particular session. Okay, so once again, I want to extend our greatest appreciation to Lori Schneider for a fabulous presentation. And more importantly, I want to thank all of you for being here today. You are the engine of the Parkinson's community. You are the ones who create awareness. You are the ones who help us figure out what educational programs and whatnot. You are the ones who have the courage to show up and stand out and say, I have Parkinson's and it's darn well time this community recognizes it, invests money in it, and does something to A, cure the disease, and B, while we're busy curing the disease, to enable organizations like the Parkinson's Association of the Rockies provide the care that counts on the way to the cure. So give yourselves all a hand, because I'm going to give you a big one. And with that, let's head on out into our breakout sessions. Breakouts will start at 10:30, so you have about 15 minutes.